Hello everyone. Hopefully you've been enjoying the new season. The hotfix patch has just dropped, so I figured why not make a tier list to express my views on the game and how broken Storm Surge is. If you do enjoy the content, please subscribe, check out the Patreon, like, and let me know if I've missed any champions down below in the comments. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy and have a good one. So let's get into it. Alii, I think as a champion, has not really seen the greatest benefits of the new change. To the season. She can't really build her Everfrost anymore. She can't go Liandry's first anymore either. A lot of the tools and flexibility that Ahri had as a champion have kind of been chopped away. She doesn't have multiple builds anymore. You kind of have to go. Well, you can go Malignance or you can go Luden's Companion, but those are the only two real options you have, both of which feel pretty bad, I'm gonna be honest. So I'm actually gonna put Ahri in either C or D tier. She feels very bad right now. Maybe Malignant's build can pull her up, but I don't think Ahri is very good, which might suck for a lot of you Ahri connoisseurs to hear, because I know a lot of people that watch my stuff play Ahri because I'm a very good Ahri player. I think personally that is kind of the champion I play. But yeah, she's not doing too hot this patch. I hope to see some buffs on her, especially considering that a lot of her strength was in the flexibility of her builds. She could go Everfrost, Luden's, or Liandry's first item, all of which had three very distinct playstyles. Now she can't do that. She's just an assassin now. Akali, I'm sure a lot of you are already aware. Storm Surge, broken. Akali probably slots right into the A tier. Storm Surge has just been nerfed, but I don't think these nerfs are big enough to really push Akali out of the A tier, to be honest. This champion is just not balanced right now. But I don't think she's really strong enough to get up into the A tier, considering the main elo ranking that this tier list is targeting is a little bit lower MMR, and I don't think people can really navigate Akali well enough. And I also think people are discovering some counters to Akali mid lane, at least at the higher levels, that seem to be pretty effective against her, even though she is so strong with Storm Surge and a cheap rocket belt. Akshan, I think Akshan is B tier. B tier or A tier. I think Akshan is a little bit better now, especially because lethality items are good on him now. He has a couple more options. What you're going to notice is the AD mid laners that do very well are champions that can build lethality items that are actually good now. You're not going to see the AD mid laners do too well, the ones that are usually more reliant on crit items. So Yone and Yasuo, Tristana, they're not very good right now just because Infinity Edge got considerably worse. But Akshan usually doesn't build those items anyway. I think he just goes mainly on hit. He has a pretty strong laning phase as well, and because AP items got so much better and magic resist items got so much better, kind of leaves a vacuum for AD champions, I think, overall. Although it could also just be the case that their items are so bad that it's just unplayable. So I think I'm actually going to put him in the B tier. Annie, with Storm Surge nerfs, she's a little bit worse now. She could be B tier. I just don't think she's that great. Cheap Rocket Belt is fantastic. Storm Surge is very nice as well. But she can't really go Liandry's first item anymore either. She loses flexibility in that regard. And I think the Storm Surge nerfs are pretty rough for her. So Anivia, it's either going to be an S tier counter pick or just an S tier. I think with Malignance, she's actually a pretty strong champion right now. You can go Malignance, and the thing about Anivia is she really likes going Hourglass or Banshees, and those two items are very, very good right now. I think I'm going to put her in A tier just because Malignance, I'm not sure it is super strong as an item yet. I have not been convinced. My default way of thinking, as should yours be, at the moment at least, is, well, if your champion can't build Storm Surge, you better have a very good reason for me picking you, right? Like, you better have a very, very good reason that I should lock you in. Because that item is so broken, it's like, hey man, you want 100 AP, or you want some magic pen, or you want some movement speed, or you want some more movement speed, or you want a big one-shot, or you want a big AoE one-shot if you kill someone? Yeah man, nice man, that seems broken. Let's just give one item everything. Oh yeah, it's cheap as well, by the way. It's not that expensive. So what I, generally speaking, do mid lane right now is I'm like, okay, can your champion do well with Storm Surge? Cool, I will consider picking it then. If your champion cannot do well with Storm Surge, there has to be a very, very good reason for me picking you. One of those reasons would be Azir. I think Azir is super, super strong right now. He doesn't need to build Storm Surge. He's very nice because you can go Nashor's Tooth, and then you can just go straight into like a Banshees or something like that. He doesn't really run out of mana that easily because blue buffs are a lot more prevalent now, right? You automatically just get a blue buff at 20 minutes, which is fantastic. So you don't really need a Lost Chapter items. Azir, generally speaking, has not had to go Lost Chapter items in the past either. The only reason you went them previously is because they were mythics, so you were forced into doing it. But Azir's build paths are a lot more freeing now. You're not locked into a Lost Chapter item, which is why he might be going up on the list into A tier. You'll see him a lot in competitive as well right now. Aurelian Sol. I'm not too sure, to be honest. Is he S tier? He doesn't really have any nice items, to be honest. Archangels actually is nice on him. Yeah, I think I could still put him in the S tier for lower MMRs. I think you can go Archangel's first item on him into Liandry's. I think that's reasonable. That works. You can also get a Banshees on him or an Hourglass, which feels very nice after the changes now. Rod of Ages might be good on him as well. I can't imagine that the style that Asol plays is so... Like, the items are so... I don't think Asol is that reliant on the items, just based off of what he does at lower MMRs, where he just kind of farms and then becomes very strong with his ult. I don't think he's really changing that much. Except you're not building Liandry's first item now, which you weren't previously anyway. You're probably just going Archangels into Rylai's and then Liandry's, and then you're crawling in a day, just like you previously would go Lost Chapter into Rylai's, into Liandry's, into Archangels. Now the build path is just shuffled around a little bit, which I don't think is going to matter. Brand. Oh, this is a hard one. I think he's A tier, to be honest. I don't think he could be S tier as well, actually. Liandry's is just not that great right now, so I don't know if I can warrant putting him in S tier, especially with a lot of the meta champions that are strong right now as well. I think they all do quite well against the brand, so I think I have to slot him into the A tier. You could argue that he might be an S tier counter pick, which I would understand the argument for that, but I'm just going to keep him in the A tier. I think the build path you go on him at the moment is the same. You go Rylai's into Liandry's, and then you maybe can find a nice little third item in a Banshees or an Hourglass. I don't think you need to go something like a Malignance or anything like that. I don't think he needs a Lost Chapter item. I think you can just get away with skipping it completely, as you previously just went Liandry's because, well, it's a good item. You didn't really go it for the specific mana reasons last patch. I think just keep in mind that you want to run something like a Mana Flow Ban and Scorch. Otherwise, you're going to run out of mana very easily. Cassiopeia, I've heard rumors that this champion is insanely strong, just because she can go Archangel's first item. I think she could warrant an S tier placement. The problem I have is just telling lower MMR players to play Cassiopeia doesn't really sit right with me, because she is a very, 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 very hard champion to play. She's very hard to navigate. You might be able to get out of lane with her, just like Azir. He can lane quite easily, but the problem is when you have to start actually playing fights, your champion is very complicated, and there are a lot of things that you need to pay attention to. And if you don't, then you're not going to get the most out of your champion, right? So I think B or A tier seems justifiable. I think at higher MMR, she would probably slot into the S tier. I think I'm fine putting her in B tier just because of the sheer difficulty it is to play her. I think it's a lot harder to play Cassiopeia at a sufficient level than it is to play something like an Azir at a sufficient level. At the highest level, I think it kind of shifts and Azir becomes a bit harder. But yeah, Corki recently been buffed. His AD growth got buffed yet again on this patch, and I think the AD ratio on his ult got buffed again. This might seem surprising to some of you because I know a lot of you watch Skillcapped as well. A tier. Corki right now has a very cool build. You might have seen Nemesis build it. My mid laner was telling me about this as well in the Polish Ultraliga. He said, okay, you go Eclipse and Triforce, and then you get a Shojin, and you're basically going full AD, no crit, but it still plays very similarly to a caster. Your E will very quickly proc Eclipse, and it shreds the armor of everyone on the enemy team, and the magic resist, obviously. So this is a very good time to play Corki right after the buffs. I don't think people have realized that Eclipse Corki is insanely strong right now. So I think definitely try to pick him up if he seems like your type of champion. Diana, she got a cheaper rocket belt, but that's kind of it. Storm Surge is also quite nice on her, but I don't think she really does anything better than the other assassins that we're about to get into. So I think she just slots into the C tier. I think if you want to play an assassin, you shouldn't play Diana. Just play something else. Echo. A tier, I think. Echo does very, very well with the new Lichbane, the new Storm Surge, and the new Rocket Belt that is a lot cheaper now. So I think he just slots into the A tier. All of his items just got better, so he obviously has to go up on the tier list. Fizz. We get our second S tier. This champion is so obnoxiously broken right now, even after the AP nerf to his Q and the Storm Surge nerfs. It doesn't matter. This champion will still terrorize your solo queue games at the lower end of the ladder, just because Lichbane is viable as a first item now, so is Storm Surge. Both of these items can be bought early. Zhonya's is good on him as well now. He just went from having a lot more cooldown reduction to now having a ton of damage, which is a lot harder to deal with at the lower end of the ladder. It gives him a lot more potential to just one-pop you, instead of like, I'm going to take 50% of your health, jump around a little bit, take another like 10% of your health, maybe take another 40%. Now he's just like a full-on boom, he hits you like a truck, instead of being like a little mosquito that just flies around and is like, bzzz. Now he's just a truck that slams into you, you know? So I think he deserves to be in the S tier, for sure. Gallo, this champion, I think, is an S tier counter pick, especially with the new magic resist items. So what you're going to recognize is a lot of the counter picks here are going to be tanks or champions that can build tank. The reason being is magic resist items are a lot stronger now. Tanks have a lot more option to build magic resist items. Previously, we didn't have a magic resist item Sunfire, right? You only had an armor Sunfire, which just means that, well, if you want to deal damage, sucks if you want to build magic resist. You just can't. You have Spirit Visage and you have Force of Nature, and you had Abyssal Mask as well, all of which don't really do any damage. Now you actually have tools to be able to deal damage and build magic resist, which makes sense because AP items got so much better, right? So magic resist items also have to get a lot better. Otherwise, one will be considerably stronger than the other. So yeah, balances out. I think S tier counter pick, Gallo suits it well. You just go double magic resist item early, especially because I see a lot of people drafting in solo queue, where they go AP top laner, AP jungler, and AP mid laner. Then you slam something like a Gallo, you go Merc Tread's first item, you go the little magic resist item Sunfire one, and you go the magic resist shield, and you cannot die. And then you go Jackshow third, because Jackshow is broken as an item right now. Probably by far the most broken item on the patch, by the way, let's not get into that. And then you're just unkillable. Garen, I think Garen falls quite a lot. Stridebreaker is just worse as an item right now, so I don't really think he does very well. A lot of the champions that are good right now as well, Garen does not do too well into. I think you can definitely play Gallo into something like a Fizz or a Galio. I think he would do quite well then, maybe even an Akali. The problem is just, well, he's just weaker now because of Stridebreaker being worse. So I don't really know. He could maybe still slot into the A tier, go Stridebreaker and Triforce, and then maybe that works. But Triforce also got worse now, so I think he's just getting a lot of hits into his items, which sucks, right? Gragas, I think he's an S tier counter pick right now. It might come as a surprise to some of you, especially if you watched LEC, where you saw Frescoe just pull the absolutely worst Gragas play you've ever seen of your life. I think this champion is very, very strong. The way to build him, I personally think, is either you go tank. If the enemy topside is full AP, you can stack magic resist and just be unkillable. His passive got buffed. It is now a scaling from 12 to 6 second cooldown instead of just being a flat 12 second cooldown, which is fantastic. It means you can get it off like usually 3 or 4 times in fights, which is great. If you need damage on your team or the enemy is not AP on the top side and you can't stack magic resist, then you can go Storm Surge first item into a Shadow Flame, into maybe a Banshees or an Hourglass third, and you will do very, very well as well. He's also just very strong against the current meta champions in Fizz and Akali. The champions you'll see locked in the most are Fizz and Akali probably, and Gragas does very, very well into them. They can just never really kill him, and he can cancel them a lot in fights. Heimerdinger, I honestly don't really know too much about. I'm just going to put him in D tier just because I haven't seen the champion whatsoever. Maybe people will discover some broken builds on him, but without Liandry's, he kind of feels a lot worse now, and you can't really go Liandry's first item, I don't think, because you run out of mana. He doesn't really want to build Malignance, he doesn't want to build Luden's Companion, and he doesn't want to build the Archangels, but he needs mana. So what does he build? Who knows? Wei. I think maybe I overestimated Wei by putting him in A tier on the last patch. He has been buffed again. I still think he's very, very strong. The problem with him being, he's very similar to Azir and Cassiopeia in this regard, where he's very, very strong at the higher end of the ladder. You're going to see him played quite a bit, especially in the LEC after his hotfix buff just came in with his Q buffs and his E buffs. And I think he got a base HP growth as well or something. But he's a lot stronger now. The problem with him is he's very easy to navigate in the laning phase, right? But playing fights on him is so damn difficult. I think I would put him in S tier or maybe A tier if it wasn't just so hard to play fights on him. So he slots into the B tier. Aurelia, I think she's C, D tier. Her items didn't really get better. Borg kind of got worse for her. Triforce kind of got worse for her. Jaxio is nice on her, which might pull her up, but I don't think any of the items she really likes got buffed. It kind of just got weaker. I think she just slots into the C tier, to be honest. Still very annoying to play against in solo queue, of course, because she requires ganks to beat. But yeah, Jace, I think he kind of just feels pretty weak now as well. I don't think he deals quite as much damage. I don't think lethality items are as suited to a conventional poking champion like Jace is. I think they're more suited for a auto-attack reliant poking champion like Corki or Jin, who we're going to get into later. I think Jin is very strong right now. I just think Jace doesn't feel too strong right now. Yeah, maybe I'll be proven wrong, but his items just feel pretty weak. Not gonna lie. Jin, I think this champion is A tier. We have seen this champion being played quite a lot in competitive. We have seen this champion being played a lot in scrims, and I see this champion being played quite a bit in solo queue as well. He can do quite well into these champions. He is a much needed AD champion in the mid lane right now. Most champions you see that are good on this list right here deal magic damage, right? Except for, well, Jin, Akshan, and Jace, Irelia. All of these other champions are magic damage dealing champions. Corki is 80% magic damage, right? Most of his damage is magic damage, even if you build AD on him. So he's a much needed AD mid laner that we've got here, where you can just get away with building lethality on him. So I think he slots into the A tier. He's very strong right now. He's very good in lane as well, and his items are pretty good. You'll see him being played a lot in the bot lane as well for sure, but he works as a flex pick into mid lane as well for sure. Karthus, I think he goes into the A tier as well, just reasonably as before. You can go Malignance on him, you can go Storm Surge on him, then you can build Shadow Flame into Deathcap, and you can just spam your ult with First Strike and farm a lot of money. I think he slots into the A tier. I don't think he's quite good enough to go into the S tier, especially because he has a pretty bad matchup against Fizz, but yeah. Kassadin, I think he's a little bit worse now. I think he's going to slot into the B tier. Well, actually, looking at the champions that are up here at the top, he might be fitting in A tier, just because he does quite well against Aurelion Sol, Fizz, Gragas, Gallo, Akali, Anivia, this guy. He does quite well against the entire board up here, so I think it's actually good to put him into the A tier here. He could also go into an S tier counter pick, which I think probably is valid as well. Yeah, I'm actually going to slot him into an S tier counter pick. He's not very good as a blind pick, because people can play other champions into him. But there's a lot of magic damage in the game right now, and there are a lot of magicist tools that Kassadin can also take advantage of, which magic damage being so strong right now means that you're going to face off against AD damage less, which, I mean, that's what Kassadin likes. He wants to go against magic damage, so there's a lot of magic damage in the game. Makes him pretty good. Katarina. This champion is a lot better now. Storm Surge is broken on her. Lichbane is really good on her as well, so she might be A tier, she might be B tier. She's very hard to navigate in fights, but yeah, I think I'm going to put her into A tier, especially at the lower end of the ladder. She does very, very well. Kayle. She's not a champ, guys. Please don't pick her mid lane. There's so many better champions to pick mid lane. Like, I promise you. Just don't do it. Maybe she's C tier, but there are better champions. If you play Kayle, it's because you don't like yourself. It's some sort of masochism, I swear to God. This champion, like, just play a mage. Just play Corki instead. That's the same thing. Just comes online earlier. Nice. It's a range champ pre-6. Can actually play the lane. LeBlanc was recently hit pretty hard. I think maybe B tier or C tier. I don't think she's very good right now. AD LeBlanc was very obnoxious, don't get me wrong. She was placed up here in the S tier. But she has recently just been taken out back and shot in the head by the Luden's companion. And AP LeBlanc, while she did get AP ratio above Storm Surge nerfs, kind of hit her as well. And the AD or the attack speed growth kind of feels pretty bad on her as well now on AP LeBlanc, so I think she deserves a C tier. I don't think she's going to be very good right now. Sandra, she could be an S tier counter pick. The problem is she just had... Well, the side just broke, or what? There we go. Lysandra could be an S tier counter pick. The problem is just I don't see her doing too well against Azir, Brand, Corki, Karthus, so these sorts of champions, or Aurelion Sol. She does pretty well against Fizz and Akali, which might warrant her placement in B tier right now because her items didn't really get a lot of help. She doesn't really like Malignance. Ludens is okay on her. Odd Changes is bad on her. Storm Surge is pretty nice on her probably as well with Rocket Belt. You could just go Storm Surge, Rocket Belt, and you'll probably be fine, or Rocket Belt, Storm Surge, depending on the order you want to build it in, and you'll probably be fine as a champion. Problem is she lost some peeling options as well with Everfrost, so I think I'm just going to put her in B tier. Yeah, the trend you're going to see is champions that could build Everfrost previously and did that as their main build path because they wanted to be utility champions and start fights, or peel, are going to be considerably worse now because they didn't really get any tools to replace that. Their most optimal way of playing was peel and CC, now they don't have that option anymore. They are forced to go damage, which means, well, their most optimal way of playing was just taken away, so they're going to be worse. It's what happened with Alii, it's what happened with Lissandra. Except for Gallo, who now just goes full tank. I've seen some rumors that Lucian mid is super strong, but I haven't really seen it personally, so I'm just going to slot him into the C tier. I don't know how strong this champion is, so yeah. Lux, I think she was recently buffed, which is great. I've seen some funny Lux builds as well. She could be A tier, she could be B tier. I'm not entirely sure. Lux at the lower end of the ladder, generally speaking, tends to do very, very well. So I think I'm going to opt to put her into the A tier instead of slotting her into the B tier, just because I think she's very obnoxious to play against at the lower end of the ladder. Just the way that she can push waves very easily and look for one-shots quite easily. The main thing to focus on when you play something like a Lux is just try to avoid overextending on your own. You are a Lux, you are a caster minion when you have spells on cooldown as well. Try to keep that in mind whenever you play this champion. Malphite goes into S tier counter pick, just as before. Pick him into AD champions. AD champions are not that good right now, so you might see less of them, so Malphite might fall in the terms of priority, but whenever you can pick him, he's really, really strong. Malzahar. This might be the first time that Malzahar is not an S tier champion, and let's get a salute to that. This is the first tier list I've made where Malzahar is not an S tier champion, which feels bad. But Malignance is not good on him. Ludens is not good on him. Archangels doesn't feel that good on him either. You need a mana item, but now, previously you had a mana item and Liandry's. Now that is split into two different paths, which means you need a lot more gold until you're good as Malzahar. Previously, once you got your Liandry's, you were really strong. Now you would have to build maybe Archangels, Rylai's, and then Liandry's, and now you're strong on 3 items. Previously, it was like, get your Liandry's, get your Rylai's, you're good to go. You can go teamfight now on Malzahar. But you need to get an entire new item now, which I think just pulls him down into the A tier. Yeah, I think he was hit a little bit too hard by the item changes, so I don't think he's S tier anymore. He might even be B tier, to be honest. I think he is just so simple to play. You know, that's hard. I think I would take these champions over a Malzahar. Would I? Nah, probably not. Just put him up in the A tier, sure. It's safe. It's safe. I know, it's safe. But I don't think he's very good right now just because of the itemization that he has to go for. Although the way he plays is still great for low elo. Absolutely fantastic. You just push waves and roam and you can do proactive things, which is great. His items just kind of suck right now. Nefari, I think this champion is a little bit weak right now. I was hoping for her to be a little bit better on this patch with Profaned Hydra, but I just don't think she made it happen, to be honest. So she's going to go into the B tier. I hope to see some more buffs on her, but yeah, I don't think she's too good right now. As many of you know, I really enjoy this champion at the lower end of the ladder just because she sacrifices early laning power for scaling, but I don't even think she scales too well right now because of the itemization, right? So I think she deserves to be in the B tier. Nico, I think Nico is very strong. You can go, what's it called, Rocket Belt into Storm Surge on her, and she feels very, very strong right now. All of her items just got cheaper and better, and Hourglass and Banshees are now viable options on her as well. So I think she deserves an A tier, maybe a B tier, because at lower end of the ladder it can be a little bit hard to make use of her passive quite as well in her setup. But honestly, I think she has enough damage to kind of play on her own, and she has enough trickery that you can do if you've played quite a lot of Nico games, where you disguise yourself as minions and try to catch people, which people usually don't really pay too much attention to at the lower end of the ladder. I can tell you they don't pay attention to it in pro play, so I can't imagine Gold 4 Timmy is paying too much attention to counting minions properly, seeing as he just failed his math class in elementary school, so he doesn't even know what 3 minions is. But yeah. I digress. Oriana, she sucks right now. Don't play her. She's just bad. Doesn't like any of the items. Ludens, sure. What do you go secondary? Storm Surge? Meh. Doesn't feel great on her, does it? Shadow Flame? Meh. There are better options than Oriana. She's also been nerfed quite hard recently because she was that broken, so maybe C tier, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and just put her in D tier for lower ends of the ladder, to be honest. Kiana, I think she just slots into a nice B tier. I don't think she's super broken. I don't think she's very weak. I think she can do decent stuff with the new lethality items. I think she has some cool itemizations now, but I don't think she's super broken, and I don't think she ever will be super broken at the lower end of the ladder, just because she is very difficult to navigate in fights properly. So I think she'll just be B tier. Rumble, this is an interesting one. I think this might be the first time I put Rumble into S tier. I think this champion in mid lane seems very, very strong right now. Well, because he's very strong in the top lane as well, right? So I think I'm going to put him into the S tier. The cheap rocket build is really nice. Shadow Flame works on this champion pretty well. Storm Surge is great on this champion as well. Hourglass or Banshees is very nice on him as well. He's not forced to build a mana item, which is fantastic. Any champion that can skip over a mana item right now, just they love life because the secondary items you can get are so strong. Rumble just fits that perfectly. You don't have to go a mana item, so he feels very good right now. Rise, I'm not entirely sure. I think I just put him in C or D tier. He has 2 mana items now, which is great. He has Archangels and Rod of Ages, but shmoop, just play one of these champions. He's very hard as well. Seraphine is kind of hard. I think Archangels might be nice on her, so she might be able to be B tier. Yeah, Archangels feels pretty good on Seraphine, so she might be a B tier champion. I'm not entirely sure. Archangels into Rylai's into Liandry's. Yeah, I don't think anything has really changed except for your build order, which means you don't get Liandry's first anymore, but I think that's fine. I think she slots into the B tier quite nicely. Sylas, I think this champion doesn't really have any items that he really wants to build right now. He usually wants mana items, but he can't build any of the mana items because Luden sucks on him, Archangel sucks on him, Malignant sucks on him, Rod of Ages sucks on him. So you're demoted to building no mana items on Sylas, which means you run out of mana very, very quickly. His items just not great right now, to be honest. Put him in C tier. Swain. Yeah, Malignant Swain feels pretty strong right now, especially with Rylai's. Feels very, very strong. So I think he deserves an S tier slot right now, especially at the lower end of the ladder. He can be very, very difficult to deal with. He also does quite well against most of this pool, so I think putting him into S tier makes a lot of sense to me. Syndra, same reason as Oriana. Sucks right now. Mage items aren't great. Talia, I think she deserves to go into S tier counterpick. I think a lot of the champions that she does well against are meta right now. She does very, very well. If the enemy has a tank support and a tank mid, or not a tank mid laner, but a dashing mid laner, or a lot of dashers on the enemy team, Talia can do very, very well. Try to not pick her into one of these control mages like an Azir or a Korki. She can struggle quite a lot, especially against Lux and Nico as well. Try to not pick her into those ranged, like long range champions. Try to pick her into more short range champions, and you'll find that she does very, very well, especially when you can run something like a Luden, Storm Surge, and then you can either go Hourglass, Banshees, or Shadow Flame, depending on what you think is best, but I think she has a lot of itemization options right now. Maybe even Archangel is best on her first item. I'm not too sure about the build right now. You can definitely look it up. People will have figured it out. Some games, I imagine, Archangels is good if you need the shield, and then some games, Luden's is good if you just want pure damage. Talon, I think he's S tier right now with Profaned Hydra. He just seems very, very strong, has a lot of roaming tools. Mid lane champions or AD mid lane champions aren't that strong right now, but Talon can definitely do some work. He gets some work around there because most people are picking AP. His value kind of rises in the mid lane because you usually need an AD mid laner or you need an AD champion somewhere because usually your top laner wants to play something like a Vladimir or Gwen, and then your jungler wants to play like maybe Karthus or something like that, and then you can lock in Talon. He does very, very well with Profaned Hydra. I think he's pretty good. He's one of the AD champions that were not hit too hard in terms of the assassins. Some of the other AD assassins really took some hits. Tristana, I alluded to it earlier. I don't think she's too good right now. Just put her in the B tier. Usually she sits up here in the A tier, but I think crit items are just kind of worse. She might even be a C tier champion right now. Navori is just not great. Triforce, or not Triforce, Infinity Edge is just not great, so I think she deserves a C tier spot. Twisted Fate. Yeah, he's S tier. Why? Well, because you don't have to go a mana item anymore, which is just fantastic. Twisted Fate never really wanted to go a mana item, so now you can build Lichbane, Storm Surge, Deathcap, Rapid Fire instead of having to go Ludens, and then Lichbane, and then Deathcap, and then Rapid Fire. You just get an entirely new item now on top of that because you don't have to build Ludens at all. You can skip Ludens and just play with blue cards, and you have enough mana because you have blue card, and you get your blue buff at around 14 minutes or 20 minutes whenever you want the guaranteed blue buff from the void buff. So I think this champion is definitely S tier right now. I'd highly recommend playing him. I prefer the damaging build on him as well. I don't think that there's any reason to go for this CC bot Rod of Ages rapid fire build that I'm seeing people go. He's a lot worse at that now because he doesn't have Everfrost. Rod of Ages is not a replacement for Everfrost. It does not provide as much utility. So if you thought Twisted Fate was bad before when you built Everfrost on him, he's even worse now, so don't even do that. Just go for the pure damage Twisted Fate build, and I promise you, you will see much more success, and you'll feel like you actually have agency in solo queue. I actually forgot Tryndamere. I think he can work. B tier. AD champions have more value now, right? Because AP champions are more broken, so you need more AD champions in the game now. So yeah, Tryndamere has decent value. Put him in B tier. Veigar. Contrary to what you might have seen on some YouTubers' channels, Veigar is not too strong right now. He doesn't really have a nice first item. Archangels is probably the best you're gonna get, which is great on him. Secondary item, you can probably run something like the Storm Surge and then Death Cap, which is wonderful. You can also build Rocket Belt on him now, which is actually quite nice. I'm gonna put him into the A tier just because at lower ends of the ladder, I think he's very good. The problem is once you reach the higher end of the ladder, your laning is just so weak and you come online so late that you're probably not gonna be able to really exist as a champion. That is not a problem at the lower end of the ladder, however, which means, well, yeah, sure, play him. Also, don't build Malignance like I did in my video. It's not good. Just play Archangels, and then play like Archangels, Storm Surge, Death Cap, and then Rocket Belt probably to gap close, and then you're good. Vex, I think Vex is an S tier champion, mostly because, well, if you think about the champions that are really strong right now, Vex does very well into most of them. Fizz, Rumble, Talon, Akali, Echo, she does very, very well into all those champions with dashes. She can skip mana items. She can just go directly Storm Surge into Shadow Flame if she wants to, which is fantastic. Whenever your champion can skip a mana item and go straight for Storm Surge, you're probably a good champion, right? Same as Fizz, right? Same as Twisted Fate. So, yeah, I think she deserves an S tier spot just because she does very well against a lot of the meta champions. She might be an S tier counterpick champion, to be honest. But I think Vex is also just very, very nice at the lower end of the ladder because she plays very, very simply. Whenever you do skip mana items, though, this is for all champions that I recommend skipping mana items on. Be very careful about how much you use your mana, because you can end up in this situation where you are used to playing with an additional 600 mana, and now you're foregoing that, and you somehow end up running yourself out of mana, and now you're stuck in the lane. You can't find recalls because you can't push out the wave because you've run yourself out of mana, and then you're just stuck in the lane and you feel very bad, and you're like, God damn, this coach on YouTube told me to build this item, but it just doesn't work. You kind of have to adapt the way you play when you don't have as much mana. I found that out on Twisted Fate recently, so be sure to keep that in mind. Vel'Koz, I don't think he's very good right now. C tier. I don't think he got very many nice items, to be honest. He liked going Leandris before, or Ludens. Actually, with Ludens maybe he's fine. Could go Archangels. We'll wait to see what Asap says. I don't think Vel'Koz is very good. He does very poorly against a lot of these champions. I don't think he's going to be that strong. Victor, well, I think he's a little bit better than Oriana and Syndra, but I don't think he's that good. He can go Lich Bane, I guess, which these two champions can't, but still sucks. He's a mage. Don't pick him. Vladimir. Yeah, he's just S tier. Just go Storm Surge, Cosmic Drive, and you are unkillable. Like, this champion is broken. Again, any champion that can skip mana items, probably doing very, very well. This is the same argument for basically all of these champions up here. Oh, you can skip your mana item? Fantastic, you're a good champion because you can build Storm Surge. The most broken item in the game, please right, nerf it. Great, nice, let's go. Well, Yone and Yasuo, they probably deserve a B tier together. Previously, they were a little bit higher. Yasuo maybe C tier, Yone is a little bit easier to navigate than Yasuo. But crit items are just bad, like I said earlier. They're just not that good right now. Zed, yeah, probably a Z tier as well. He's not very good. Lethality items just didn't really work out on him. He's getting buffs as well, so he might be able to go up into the B tier maybe, but I don't know. He seems pretty weak. Zigz. Zigz is actually pretty okay. The way you can play Zigz, what we've been doing in scrims, is you run Malignance on him. Make sure you only pick him when you have a CC jungler that can really easily lock up the enemy backline, but you can run Malignance into Storm Surge, into like a Death Cap, and you actually do a shocking amount of damage, take first strike, and then you just spam your ult on repeat whenever your jungler locks someone up. Even if it's just to poke them out for 800 damage, that's worth it, because you've just made their life a lot more miserable now. You don't need your ult really that often on Zigz when it comes to like utilizing it during the early stages of the game, so you can just spam your ult to get first strike procs and to get lane pressure and your side lanes whenever you want to do that, whenever your jungler ganks them. So I think he can actually be placed in A tier if you place like a Malignance on him. Problem with that is you might run out of mana early. I've seen a lot of people run Ludens on him as well, which is great. That's how he wants to play, right? That poking style. You could also run Archangels on him just because it gives him a lot of AP value and you get a lot of mana, which is great for Zigz. I'm not too sure what the best build is at the moment, but we've been using him as a champion that just pokes out the enemy team and farms all the gold with first strike. Zillion. This champion can actually be okay, but I'm going to put him into the C tier. I don't think he's that great. I'm trying to think about his items. Archangels, I guess that's good. Archangels and Rod of Ages, that feels a little bit too slow. That's also why Rise is down here. Archangels into what? Storm Surge? You probably have quite a lot of damage, to be honest. And he scales decently well. You know, I'm convincing myself as I speak. He just has a very weak laning phase. But does the laning phase really matter that much at the lower end of the ladder? I don't really think so, to be honest. So maybe B tier. Could maybe even slot him into the A tier. Zoe? Champ sucks. Don't pick her. Oh wait, I forgot about Xerath. Xerath is actually a little bit better than these control mages down here. I think he can be slotted into the B tier. Ludens is pretty good on him. He feels very nice with Ludens. He feels very nice with art changes as well. Both of these items are very nice on him. And then you can go Horizon Focus, which is great. And then you can either go Storm Surge or you can go Deathcap, which feels pretty good on him. He also has more defensive options now with the Banshees or the Hourglass that are actually viable items on him now. Banshees can be built on Seraph now because it gives a lot of AP, which is great. So I think he slots into the B tier quite nicely. The only issue I have with Seraph is he doesn't do very well against most of these champions up here, which obviously just means his relative value drops. The main way to look at this is like some champions might be okay, but if they're very bad against the strongest champions on the patch, then they just lose value, right? It's just like that's the thing with Seraph. He might not be terrible, but you rock up against the Fizz, well, you're going 0-10. Rumble, gonna feel bad. Swain feels decent. Talon, you're not gonna feel great. Twisted Fate, you're gonna feel okay. Vex, you're gonna feel okay as well. Vlad, you're not gonna feel great. Akali, nah. Kassadin, nah. You know, it's not gonna feel great. So, yeah, you know, his value just drops kind of because of that. I don't think I've missed any champions. Well, if I've missed any champions, do let me know in the comments below. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Have a good one. See ya. Bye bye. Bye bye.